Hey, Lefko here for episode 11 of Afterglow. It's been roughly a month since we did the last one. I figured it was time to upload something new. On top of that, if you are not new and you've been here for a while, you'll notice I'm working on making a few minor changes. The artwork for this episode, for example, is a little different. I'm toying about with some AI-created artwork, making a few modifications to it and then trying it out. Also might be looking to have something professionally made down the road. Don't know if I might end up doing that or not, but it's kind of an option. But enough about that. Today we're going to be talking about another game from the NES. If you haven't noticed, the NES competes pretty hard for possibly my favorite video game console of all time. It's just really... That console is very nostalgic for me. It's what I grew up on. And it's what I went back to whenever, in my teenage years, if I didn't have like a lot of cash or something. A lot of times you could pick up NES games for literally less than $1 in some cases, if you knew where to look. So easily the NES is probably one of my favorite consoles for nostalgia. And today we're going to be talking about an interesting game. If you remember... A few episodes back, I mentioned that not all games I would be discussing would be games that would be considered like great classics. But this is going to be one of those. So after the music cut, we'll be checking out some Fester's Quest. Alright, welcome back. And I'll tell you what, the one thing I can say about Fester's Quest is that it has one of the best soundtracks on the NES. Not a lot of tracks on it for the game, but easily some of my best, not my best, but some of my favorite tunes from the NES comes from this game. So my personal memories from this game. The first time I played it, I was at a friend's house. Years and years ago, back in a tiny town called Gleason, Indiana. I had gone over with a friend of mine to his place, and I remember specifically there are 3 games that we had played a lot over there. The first one was Double Dragon, which all-time classic on the NES as far as I'm concerned. One of the best beat-em-ups before the Turtles games came out for it. Freedom Force, which is a light gun shooter, and I really got into it. I know it's not the most popular, but I really enjoyed it. And then the third one, Fester's Quest. First of all, at first, whenever I started playing it, I had no clue this was an Addams Family game. And I had heard of the Addams Family at this point. I might have even seen like an episode or 2 of the old classic one. But this was before the movie came out. At least to my memory, it was before the movie came out. And I had no clue that this was an Addams Family game at all. It didn't even dawn on me later in the game, whenever you get keys to unlock doors and members of the Addams Family give you stuff, like Wednesday gives you vice grips or light bulbs or something like that. But I had no clue that this was an Addams Family game until, maybe after... maybe after a few years almost, I had finally seen in the corner of the Addams Family by the giant Fester's Quest logo. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it is an Addams Family game. And part of the reason why I didn't realize is that the game doesn't explain too well what the goals are. You start out in an overworld, and you're blasting away at enemies that take a ton of hits from your default gun. And you can upgrade your gun, but you can also downgrade your gun. And none of this is explained in the game. If I remember right, like the blue icons upgrade it and the red icons downgrade it. Never explained at all. So you'd be playing and you're like, why'd my gun go back down? And then you'd eventually figure it out. But without reading the manual or having the manual, it wasn't well explained. And oftentimes in this era, we didn't really keep the boxes or manuals to our games. At least if you were a kid in my neighborhood, you didn't. You were very interested in that game cartridge, not as much as the stuff that came with it. But it wasn't a bad game, but we got frustrated with it. We went back to Double Dragon. But my second go-around, I think I had maybe borrowed this game from someone or rented it. I can't fully remember. What I do remember is I got back. I started playing it again. I'm like, wait a second. I've played a game similar to this. And it hit me, this game is like the game engine is like Blaster Master for the sections where you control the driver of the tank. Not the side viewpoints, but the overhead viewpoints. It's like the exact same game engine. Except not nearly as fun. But I had played it a bit more at that point, and I had finally managed to get through this, like a sewer area. And I struggled with this sewer area so hard at first, because it's got these enemies that multiply. And, like, you'd kill it, and it would pop off in, like, 5 more. Eventually, you find out you need to kill it with TNT. A special weapon that you need to have a key to go into a house for another Addams Family member to give you. Again, not well explained. So, this is in the area where you would, like, experiment a lot in games to figure out what to do, and you wouldn't get frustrated by it. Something that's really lost in this day and age. There's not nearly as much experimentation in gaming, because the internet. Like, any question you could possibly have about any game, now you can just go to a web browser and find it. Back then, we didn't have that option. It was just word of mouth through your friends, and good luck to you. But I'd gotten through that sewer section, hit the overworld again, and then there was a house that you went into that had like a first-person... It was trying to be a maze, but it wasn't very complicated as far as where to go. Like, the only thing that made it maze-like was the fact that everything looked the same whenever you moved. But then you fought a boss, and the bosses in this game, easily the best part of this game, because the screen goes like entirely black with this giant sprite that's attacking you. It's just you and the boss, nothing else in the background or anything. And the sprites, I mean, they look horrific, but the artwork is really, really good for the NES. And it has this pounding theme for the bosses that's going on while you're fighting it. Again, like, I love the music in this game. I'm not a fan of the gameplay itself. I feel like if you want to play something like Fester's Quest, Blaster Master is seriously a better title. Which is really a shame, because I kind of see what they were going for here. I mean, if they would have explained the game in-game a bit better, gotten rid of the weapon downgrades, and a big one, having your gunshots, whenever you fire, pass through things in the game. Because, like, if your bullets, whenever you fire, they have, like, a wave to them. And if they hit a wall or a tree or something, that bullet disappears, which is a major problem because this wave is usually a huge wave. So you can, like, be in a tight corridor and you're firing your gun and you're going nowhere because the walls on your left and right are absorbing your fire and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, if I remember right, I read somewhere that I want to say the European version doesn't have this issue, that the gunfire passes through the walls, which that alone would help the game significantly. It's such a shame that we didn't get something like that here, because that alone would just be a huge fix for the game. But that's really my history with Fester's Quest, as far as what I have memories of. Later on, I bought the cartridge, and I did play it. I don't think I beat it, but I want to say I got to the second boss, at least. And I finally got to the point where Fester has the whip, which is so much better than the gun, because the whip always fires straight out. It's so much better, and I think it does a lot more damage, too, after it's powered up. But maybe eventually I'll go back and beat the game, because it is an interesting game. Again, it's like, if you want to play it, really you're better off just playing Blaster Master, or even better, there's a modern day versions of Blaster Master called Blaster Master Zero. There's at least 3 or 4 of them, and they're all really, really good. And to me, that takes the basic formula of Fester's Quest and just grows upon it. So that'll be it for this episode of Afterglow. Hope you enjoyed my rambling, and we'll see you again. Enjoy the boss music outro.